What is up, guys? Shalom, shalom. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm going to try to keep the intro short because the actual teaching today is kind of long, longer than the last one. So we shall see if I can keep the intro quick, short and sweet. But yeah, this episode, so it's going to again be similar to the last episode. It's going to be a teaching, and so I'm just doing a brief intro about what exactly we're going to be getting into today. You might have already guessed from the title of the video, assuming that I titled it correctly, but this episode, it kind of, well, I say this episode, this teaching revolves around a very interesting, complex issue that I've personally been, I wouldn't say struggling with, but I've certainly been wrestling with it over the past 4-5 years now. And it's this idea of how does work fit into the equation if God is my provider? If I believe that God is going to provide for me, and whether I work or I don't work, why would I have a job? And that's not that easy of a question to answer. And because there is an appropriate place for those in the church to work and to do it in faith. And Paul even gives us an example in scripture when he says, you work so you might have something to give, right? You do honest work with your hands. You do honest work with your hands so you don't have to be subject to any man. That's the best words that we have for it, right? Where it's, the reason you would work is so that you might have something to give. But that's not as easy as you might think, because there's a lot of carnal crap that has to be unlearned and rooted out from how we've always engaged with work and what we've always understood about work. Because I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that my only understanding my whole life before 5 years ago was that you work to earn money, because if you don't work, then you're going to starve to death and you need to take care of your business. God helps those who help themselves type of stuff. And so as much as I think that there is something to that, I also would say I disagree with that, because that's not the game we're playing here. It's not a God helps those who helps themselves type of thing. Without further ado, let's jump right into it.
Not working would be a good idea. So the reason for not working is to bring clarity to that struggle. It's not to ignore it. It's not to say that that struggle is not worth attention. Maybe instead of calling it work, let's refer to it maybe in a slightly different way. That it's something you can do for yourself, right? And that's in competition with God wanting to do for you and wanting you to trust only in Him doing for you. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
I'm not done, but
okay,
are you tracking so far?
That's the part that I hang up on.
Right.
Because
so, like using this clam as an example, the hard part with me engaging in any kind of activity like building the clam, doing any kind of work for money. The hard part about that kind of activity is it could be both. It could be me trying to do for myself, or it could be me trusting that God's doing for me. So the actual activity does not tell you which one it is, right? I do freelance work for a company out of Florida to manage their e-commerce website. I'm doing that as work, and I do that a little bit every month. And now, just by looking at that, we can call it work, right? I'm exchanging my time for money, but that doesn't tell you whether I'm doing that to do for myself or whether I'm doing that because I'm trusting that God's doing it for me. Does that make sense? So that's the hard part, is that just looking at the physical action of building the clam or doing that work for the e-commerce people, that doesn't, the actual meaning of what's spiritually going on cannot be discerned there. And that's what we call the flesh. It's something you can see and measure in the physical world. Is, oh, you're doing a job there. Or, oh, you built this clam. But the things of God cannot be discerned in the physical, in the flesh. So you are not able to discern, just because I tell you I'm doing this job for this company or I built this clam, you are not able to discern the things of God about that. Nobody can, just from that, right? Because the things of God are not in operation in the things of the flesh. Are you following me so far? Okay, so now that we understand that the actual doing of the job could be me doing for myself and trusting in my own strength, or it could be me trusting that this is God providing for me and God's doing it. So the problem is, when we all start out, what is our relationship with me doing the work? It's this. Any work I've ever done, what I'm doing is I'm doing for myself. And that's pretty much the only reason I would ever do any work for anybody. The only reason I'd ever do any job for anybody is because it's getting me something. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the only relationship we've ever known with the doing of the work is it's me doing something for myself. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, it is true, 100%, that I can be doing a job and it can be 100% me trusting in God as the one who's doing it for me. However, because this is what we've got rooted in us, you're not really ever going to be able to just switch to this while this is still in place. I can't think of a good example. I'm sure there's a great example, Lord give one, but the idea that, like, while you're continuing to do the thing in the flesh that has always been, the way in which you do for yourself, to suddenly be like, while I'm still doing this, I can just, now I believe it's this. Probably not. All things are possible with God. There's probably somebody that he's done that with and might do that with, but the important thing is not whether you're doing the work, right? The important thing is that this is where your faith is. That's the important part. And this is regardless of this. Like, the actual nature of trusting that God's the one who does for us, that is regardless of what we do. That's grace. It's that God's going to give us that no matter what, right?
See, my hang up with that part of that, having like the jump through the hoop thing, is I agree with all of it. But I have this, like, if you're able to do the work, I feel like he would want you to. Like, that would be his way of providing. Like, I gave you the ability to do this.
There is a place for that. But, so, I helped you with your rig. Right. I spent time, however much time, I helped you with your rig. I bought some materials for your rig. I showed you grace. Mm-hmm. It's possible that your reaction to me extending that grace toward you might have been like, oh, well, like, okay, that's nice and all, but like, okay, the painting stuff that we talked about, like, well, I need to make Derek some paintings. I can't just receive that grace because, like, some pain's for Derek now. How do you think I would feel about that? Now, am I delighted with you making paintings for me? Yes. Like, I think you're a great artist. I enjoy the stuff you make, and I'm always delighted, like, if you're like, hey, here, I made this for you. But if you were giving me a painting because you felt like you needed to in response to me giving grace to you, the thing I want to show you is grace. Mm-hmm. And that grace has nothing to do with if you're ever going to do anything in my direction or do anything for yourself or anything. It's just, this is an expression of me showing love towards you, period. That's it. Mm-hmm. And for you to try to feel obligated in any way that you need to push something in my direction, it'd be like, shove it up your ass. That's why you shouldn't work for a period. We've got to learn that grace.
Well, see, I don't feel like I have a problem receiving grace if I'm not sitting around being a lazy piece of shit.
But that being a lazy piece of shit, what causes you to feel like you're being a lazy piece of shit is you feel like, wow, like I need to contribute something. Like I need to make a painting for Derek. I'm being a lazy piece of shit.
See, I don't think it's like, I feel like I need to return the favor. It's just like, why would I accept grace from somebody to have them do something for me if I'm not even putting any effort to help myself? Like, that to me is just, I don't know how to flip that.
Well, before if I could just add this in there really quick, were you around when we were talking about, like, the definition of grace?
Maybe at some point.
Because grace, the definition of it is, like, not work. Or, like, you've done nothing to earn this. Like, it's the opposite of work.
Like, I don't have a problem receiving grace. I don't have a problem if, I'm over there trying to put my camper back together and you guys want to come over and help me. I don't feel like I have to do something in return for that. But
if you have the ability to do it yourself,
and you're over there doing it, and I'm just sitting back here playing on my phone.
But that's the problem is you think you can do something. And in the context of God, you can't. And so that's part of what learning the grace thing is. It's like you think you have something you can contribute to this picture. And it's like, oh, honey, everything is his. You have nothing to contribute. Even if me building this, me being out in the heat and cutting it and buying the materials, I was contributing nothing. I have no ability to have contributed anything to this clan, right? That's what the no working is, to help try to because we have no power. We have nothing to contribute. So the idea of, God helps those who helps themselves. It's like, well, sure, maybe. But the problem with that premise is there's an assumption that there's some help, some power, some resourcing we can contribute to the picture. And we can't. We have nothing to contribute to the picture. So that's the humility we've got to learn. And so how does he help us learn that? He frustrates all of your attempts. So you think, oh, I figured out how I can help God. I can do laundry. I figured out how I can help God. I can do this or that. I can run a little concession thing. And God's like, no, you have no power to do that. No, you have no power to do that. Right? And you feel frustrated because you're like, look, I'm trying to do it. Like, are you just mad at me? He's like, no, you're not getting the lesson. Like, the thing to learn is you have nothing to contribute. You have to. You have always been in the boat of being completely helpless, right? Now, I know on the Windows stuff, one of the things lent you to being willing to receive a little help with that is because your hand was not able to manage all that as well, right? And so you're like, okay, well, maybe I can't help myself with this as well. But that's how we all are. Like, we're all helpless. And so that's what all the whole, that wilderness period is about, is to get us into that humility of like, I can't contribute anything. Like, the starting point, the actual starting point is not, well, what can I offer first? And then once I've run out of my stuff, then maybe then God can step in. But no, the starting point is like, I'm already out. In fact, it's not that I'm just ran out. It's like the true reality of the situation is I never possessed anything to begin with. It was a lie that I actually had anything to be able to contribute to this. And so the place I'm at, and have always been at, is I need God to do it. 100% God has to do that. And so that's why, like, part of the not working is, it is somewhat offensive. Like, I think part of it that is intentional is, it is offensive to that whole, like, I have something, I need to provide something into this picture. And God's like, no. So if you've learned that, if you have, like, really gotten that down in you, like, I have nothing to give, and like it can only be by God, and then that's when, then, you know, somewhere beyond that, once you walk that out thoroughly, then maybe God will let you actually participate, like with a little plastic play hammer or something. Right? Let me approach it this way. Which would be easier for you, and we're saying you in this situation as somebody who's early on in this journey of learning to let go of the idea that you have anything to contribute and to trust that God will just provide everything for you. So which would be easier and more obvious for you, to just be obviously clear that God will provide for you no matter what you do? Which scenario would be easier? I'm going to give you 3 scenarios. You need money for a plane ticket. So you go and you just go like gangbusters and you do all sorts of DoorDash and you scrounge up enough money to cover the plane ticket. Option 2, you're like, man, I really need that plane ticket money, Father. Like, give me the plane ticket money. And then let's say somebody shows up and is like, hey, you know what? Will you watch my dogs for a week? I'll pay you $200, which happens to be the money you need for the plane ticket. Or option 3, you're like, okay, Dad, like, give me the money. I need the money for the plane ticket. And then just the next day, somebody shows up and says, you know what, Deborah, here's $200. Now, which of those scenarios would most clearly convey to you that God will give to you regardless of what you're doing, and that, like, it doesn't matter what you contribute to the picture, God got you?
Well, the third one, obviously. But the other 2 is what makes more sense to me.
Well, you've got to learn how to walk out the third scenario. Like, it actually takes more advanced faith to walk iteratively back through those scenarios, to where I can be the one, like, going and getting a job and fully knowing and glorifying God on that, Father, this is your provision for me. Like, that actually takes more faith and more maturity to do. And so which option is the option God wants to do for baby Christians? The third one. And so in order to put them in that boat where they need that miracle, they need just the obvious slap in the face, sloppy writing version of it, anything that they try to do, like, so if they try to go do the DoorDash, it's going to suck, right? And any opportunities that might, where they could at least try to feel like they're contributing, he's going to dry all those up so that they end up at the place of, all right, Dad, you just got to give me the money. Just open up your big checkbook, open up your big God checkbook, right? So instead of requiring God to force you into that place, why not just go there to begin with? From the get-go, and go, Dad, I'm not going to try to do DoorDash. I'm not going to be waiting for some job to show up. I'm expecting you to just provide this for me, period.
I guess because I don't see that happening. Like, that's not something you just see, so it's kind of hard to accept.
Have you ever fully been in that place for very long to, like, see that?
Like 5 months last.
I mean, there's a trailer over there that kind of says something different.
Right.
2 trailers, actually.
Yeah.
Also, for like the entire 5 months last season, you were just begging me to go do DoorDash the whole time. So there's that too.
Well, but the miraculous provision. So that's kind of the whole point of, okay, instead of me trying to trust in and look to and try to make certain things happen, only for God to have to, like, knock every one of those things out of my hand and frustrate it, to bring me to this place of, like, okay, Dad, just give it to me. From that place where we're fully persuaded that God's going to provide all things for us, there will be a very appropriate place for us to go, okay, it's appropriate for us to engage in some kind of labor. But but now the reason we're doing it is not to do for ourselves, because we've gone through this. Like, God has thoroughly convinced us, like, he'll drop money from the sky to provide for. So I don't need to do this to do for myself. God's got me covered. So then that's kind of brings us to the question that we've been asking is like, well, why would we work? Like if we actually are believing this, why would we work? We know doing some labor is still kind of in the picture, but we know it's also not to do for ourselves, which is the only reason we've ever known why we should be doing it. So that's kind of been the quandary we've had. And some of the pieces that have started to fill in that question were the
How
answer.
does that work? You say you work not to do for yourself, but you do. Like, and I don't mean just you, just like people in general.
Again, just because you see me doing work doesn't mean it's this, right?
Right.
It could be this. Now, what I've also experienced is if I've been doing some kind of work for somebody and I start kind of being, oh, this is nice, and I start kind of trusting in that thing, God will say, oh, we're changing the program now, right? Like you're doing this and your heart started to kind of do this. So now we're going to change it up, right?
Right.
He's done that so many times. And it's actually like in the flesh and in the moment, it's kind of scary because guess why? Because we started to trust in that thing and he yanks it out from underneath us and it kind of reveals, oh, I was starting to trust in that, right? But that's actually kind of comforting because if my highest priority is that I want to be trusting in him, then it's actually kind of nice to know that if my heart is starting to kind of lean this way, that he will course correct the situation. So it's like, cool, like Dad's got me, right?
Right.
And, but just because I'm engaged in work doesn't mean I'm doing it to provide for stuff. I've been doing this a long time. So I'm a lot further down that path of being able to like do the active rest of like not trusting in the thing as source of provision. But,
well, it's interesting too, if I can add this in there. I don't know if this is like encouraging or not, but to me, it's kind of cool in the ways that God has frustrated your attempts, because it reminds me a lot of what my last year was like. I was working and I was really trying to put a dent in my debt. I actually thought I was going to get it all just taken care of. And it's funny how despite all of my efforts and all the different things that I was doing, I wound up at the end of the season when we were getting ready to go to Stillwater, basically where I was when I arrived, because especially with the car stuff that happened where, those repairs, they needed to get done. So I was basically back in the same debt hole that I was, and any amount that I was able to shave off of it just went right back to where it was. And it's like there was something a little demoralizing about that, but it was also kind of funny because I was like, all right. Because, it is like one of those things where God's trying to get your attention, and, just in the ways that you've described where you tried this and then this happened and then you tried this. And it's almost like I don't know, it's scary and it's like not the funnest thing to be walking through, but it's also like, God's doing it. Like he's the one who's responsible, and it's not a coincidence, right? That these things are happening. And so you just have to like throw your hands up and be like, okay, all right. You got me. Like I am misstepping royally somehow. And you're reminding me that like, even just how bad the door dashing was in Stillwater, where I literally thought, okay, college town, small, like area. So you can just be, doing all the different little restaurants, just quick punches. I mean, based on what we were making here in Arizona, I was like, oh man, Stillwater, that's going to be a cakewalk. Like, that's just going to be Raising Cane's, Panda Express.
Fish in a barrel, man.
Yeah.
What I don't understand now is, were we just incredibly blessed, and was it just a huge miracle that we made any money last season at all?
Yes.
Or in Stillwater, was God just really putting a suppressor on that?
Yes.
Or it could be both, I guess. But
yeah, absolutely both. And I don't know, for the past like couple of years, like I was doing the cat watching and dog watching. Like now it seems like maybe that season's coming to an end, which I'm fine with. Like I don't, if I never have to watch another dog again, I'm fine. But also it's I I don't know, it's just kind of weird, like how random. And then even I always go back to at least of recently, the Colorado trip where like that remote work that I was doing, it just like showed up for a time and then it disappeared. And it's like, I wonder how much of that God was maybe trying to throttle that in me, where I was starting to turn my heart towards the thing instead of to him, where I was like, oh wow, I'm making like a lot of money doing bullshit essentially. Like, I mean, I showed you the work I was doing. Like, it was not hard and it was like kind of nonsensical in a way, but they were paying me really good for it. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll just do this. And then I don't know, maybe like there was a part of me that was starting to trust in it as like, this is the thing. And so then that's why it needed to end. And I'm fine with that because it's like, if nothing else, it was kind of cool just how it came into the situation. It's almost like the thing itself was irrelevant. It was just like, oh, it was like God saying, you know, like, oh, how much money are you going to need? Okay, there you go. And then once all of that was done, it's like, well, now I'm going to go ahead and just take that away because you don't need it anymore. But I was starting to trust the thing. I was like, well, no, I don't want it to go away. And God's like, well, what are you like worried about? Like, I gave you that in the first place. And so like, why are you not just trusting me? Why are you trusting in the thing? And yeah, I really like can appreciate where you're coming from, really. Cause like, I feel you, and I'm still like learning a lot of this stuff myself, and, still getting oh boy, speaking of dogs I don't like.
Absolutely not, sir. Not tricking me.
I know. I don't know. It's weird because it's like, it feels, especially I think because I told you this before, I think you're wired similarly to how I'm wired, in the sense of like, it feels like in the flesh, it feels like I'm doing something wrong. Where it's
laziness has always been like one of my biggest pet peeves. Drives me up the damn wall.
Yeah, and God gave me a front row, even just picture of it with my own family, where he showed me like how laziness can destroy like family stuff. Like, you know, just times in which my dad just decided he didn't want to work and like would just be sitting around the house doing nothing. Oh wow, that can destroy like a family and trust. Like, my mom stopped trusting my dad because it's like, oh, I can't rely on you for anything. And so it's like having something like that baked into my conscience, and then God being like, hey, I don't want you to work and I don't want you to do anything. And it's just like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like, no way, Jose. Like, I see what happens when you don't work, and that's bad stuff. Like, that's no good. And it's like a fear that needs to be rooted out, you know?
Well, maybe a good alternative could be don't work for money. Like, go out there, put in 8 hours every day, and just go for it. But don't do it for money. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And
I think part of the frustration, though, is that it's like, I do know if I get a job that it's only by God, because he's the one that does everything for us. And so it's like, if I was to get a job, I would have the money to do the things faster than just sitting here waiting for it to appear.
But see, right there, you're saying that. See, that's trusting in, if I could do this thing, then I know I could have it. Instead of just going ahead and jumping ahead, cutting the line. You're allowed to cut the line in this whole process. You're allowed at any point in time to utterly give up. You are allowed. That's why I don't do medicine.
God.
That's why I don't do medicine and stuff like that, because it's like, yeah, I'm not mad at it, but it's like, ultimately, the thing I need to be trusting in is God. Like, let me go ahead and just jump ahead to the end of the line and be like, I'm SOL. Like, let me go ahead and just go ahead and get to that place of I'm shit out of luck. Not to use
Dirk said the L word. Dirk said the L word.
L word here, but you know what I mean. Like, where I'm like, basically, I'm powerless. My only option is God. Like, unless God does it, it ain't gonna happen. You can cut to the front of that line any time, but in that state of, well, if I could just get a job, then that's quite a few places back in that line. You still have quite a few other things to let go of before you're actually at a place of, well, God, I guess unless you do it, it ain't going to get done. And that's when he goes, okay, here you go. You're like, what the fuck? You mean I've been trying all this stuff, and then now you just, and it's like, it's there. Like, what the fuck is that? I just did all this shit. You know, like, I went through all this hell. And it's like, you know, a conniption fit. I mean, ask me how I know, you know, that sentiment. But you can jump to the head of that line at any point and just completely give up. That's where he's taking you, whether you like it or not. The frustration, the angst, the worry, the friction you feel is because God is dragging you to the front of that line, kicking and screaming. And at any point in time, you can just say, okay, Dad, you don't have to drag me anymore. I'll jump to the front of that line. I will let you help me. I will let you give me everything I need for this rig. I will let you give me, if I need any help, I'll get it. Whether it's with people here or you might bring some random new person we've never met in our lives that comes and does this. I don't know. I don't care how you do it. I'm going to let you do it. And then from that place of like, I don't know what it's going to look like, but Dad's got my trailer renovation sorted. Then you're like, well, since that's not on my plate anymore, since I'm not having to figure out this grift over here and this grift over there, man, I now have time on my schedule to go help out there and do whatever out there, right? I'm not trying to push that on you, just as a current example. But
I'm totally good with going out.
Yeah,
And
I don't know. It kind of seems like you have an agenda that you're trying to push there.
yeah, I know. I didn't tell you. But but you can see how you going and laboring in love, because that would be a clear labor of love, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, you wouldn't be doing it because you feel guilty and like you owe them anything because of the trailer, because they were very clear it was a gift. And so that's an example like what we had with going and helping Queen with digging the hole, right? It was very clear like, oh man, like that was a labor of love. It wasn't, and it was very rewarding and all these different experiences. That's why I use that as an example, because that's just a ready example we have. Mm-hmm. But you can see where if you were in a place of like, oh yeah, Dad, like is like, I don't need to figure anything out. Like I've given up. Dad's going to do the trailer, whatever that looks like. So that, like, my schedule's freed up. I have a whole lot less to worry about now. So I'm now freed up to be able to do this labor of love stuff. I'm now freed up to, you know, make an audiobook for Duncan, right?
Right.
But if we're not walking in that kind of peace, that faith, then we're like, why, you know, we'll have no availability for that kind of stuff. So, yeah.